The Frivolous Dreams Podcast with Kyle Rogers. Let's think big. Let's think stupid. Yeah, let's be frivolous. Get up, breathe it out. Breathe it up, breathe it up, breathe it out. Pick your numbers, then open your packs. Cross your fingers, then declare attacks. Kyle ripped off Doug Benson. Doug loves movies. Kyle loves magic. The Gathering. This is not the Kyle loves magic. The Gathering. This is the Frivolous Dreams Podcast with Kyle Rogers.
Dan, so Kyle tells me you're the director of a library?
Well, kind of, sort of. But actually, I'm the chair on the library board, and our actual director or librarian is Vicki Franklin. Yeah, and we do her and I, we do a lot of coordination together, collaboration, you know, all those good words, and we just work a lot together. But no, I'm on the board. There's 5 people. It's a 5-member board, and I'm one of them. And then there's Vicki Franklin, our librarian, and we all do various things to get things done for the library.
So, welcome, Dan. Welcome, Dad, Paul, to Frivolous Dreams. This is a collaboration. I originally had my dad scheduled, as I texted you about, for this podcast to talk about a book, and then you reached out to me to talk about a book, and I was like, well, I don't have time to do 2 separate things, but here we are.
This works.
But
I'm still coming to you, Kyle, for a future interview.
Okay.
Anyway.
So with that said, though, so Dan, you've already been half introduced. Dan Turner from the Board of Commissioners, Board of the Library Board.
Yes, that works.
You also write, what's the title of your article?
Reader's Fave. It comes out each week in the Wahkiakum Eagle. Right.
Now, Dad, Paul, you are the host of a radio show called
The Coffee Hour,
run out of Holyoke Community College.
Yes,
in Massachusetts.
Yes, and we can stream all the way to Washington at 103.5 WCCH 1035.com. And at that, if you go to that website, you can find out exactly how to hear and listen to many of the broadcast shows that come out of the college.
Awesome.
But that's my plug for my show. It's called Coffee Hour, and it comes kind of early in the morning for you guys. It's 8 a.m. for us here on the East Coast, which would be 4 a.m. for you guys on the West Coast.
Close enough.
5 a.m.
Yeah.
5 a.m.
Yeah. I still regularly remember, like, East Coast privilege. I didn't realize that, like, whenever I saw a commercial, East Coast, and it was like 9/8 Central, I just assumed on the West Coast they would say, like, 7/6 Mountain or something.
Right.
No. I just keep with the 9/8 Central. But whatever. I don't watch TV too much anymore, so I don't have to worry about it. But
Right. Same here.
So originally, I tried to get my dad to read The Real Anthony Fauci, and he said,
I'm not interested in reading about Anthony Fauci. I've never been a big reader of character books like that. I once came across a first edition copy of the O.J. Simpson's book, and I thought about reading that, and I didn't. I read Christopher Reeve's Superman character's first book, his book, and that was probably. I'm not a big character person reader. I don't, like the life of Woodrow Wilson. I read that when I was a child, and a couple. But most of my reading comes in fiction fantasy. Dan, I'm a big fiction fantasy fan. I've read a lot of books, but Kyle sent me this other book called Chaos.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with it at all?
I'm not, but I am fairly familiar with Charles Manson. But I saw a little bit of the title that Kyle sent me, and I was completely unaware of any possible or whatever association between Manson and the CIA, if there is any. I did read, or at least I can't remember now. I did read parts, or maybe the whole thing, Helter Skelter.
I read the whole book, Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
Back when it was first published in the early 70s.
Oh, okay. I didn't read it.
1974.
Yeah, I didn't read it till 10, 15 years later after that. Yeah.
If you want the full title, it's Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and Secret History of the 60s.
Well, yeah, and I thought this to be amusing is because this author, Tom O'Neill, he is expanding on going beyond the case and into the background. And I've only read the first 70-something pages, and I'm really actually starting to get into a lot of things that were going on in Hollywood around the time of this murder. And I like the author. The question of why these people committed this crime, how they came about, coming from some really nice families, having everybody has social issues. They have relationship issues. They have how do I make friends issues, and how do I become a part of society issues. But these people went from like being just wanting to be a part of the counterculture to commit murder. How did that happen? Thus far into the book, the author has reflected on that somewhat, and he's being very coy about getting deeper into it. It's like any good book. I'm 68 pages, so I'm not supposed to know everything. It's a 800-page book.
Is it really?
Yeah. But I have something I want to show you. Here. This is right here in the video, if you can see. I did cleanouts, Dan, and I came across this cassette tape, and it's a live interview with Charles Manson.
When?
Recorded in it doesn't say the date, but
do you think it's before or after?
It doesn't say the date.
That's interesting.
You'd have to hear you'd have to put the cassette in to try to find out the date. But, I did a cleanup, and I just felt it was pretty intriguing because I did read Helter Skelter, and I watched a couple documentaries on the, whole Manson, Kate LaBianca murders. And, there's a lot of information in here that I'm going to read this because it's a 2-page thing and see if there's any correlation between the author and the documents I have from this interview.
So the in the first couple chapters, I think I ended up accidentally getting to the 4th chapter, even though we were supposed to only do the first 2. But he introduces you to the characters that are in the play, we'll say. explains the history of Manson, his upbringing, and how perfect, with a capital S on sarcasm, his upbringing was. And then it discusses some of the victims and some of the murderers and their origin story, we'll say. And it also introduces who's the guy who did the original prosecution?
Bugliosi.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it brings
Vincent Bugliosi.
Yeah, and it introduces you to him, and it kind of creates a character portrait of him as a, I would describe the portrait painting as very egotistical and strong-willed and willing to railroad you so that you can't prove him wrong. That's what it sounds like when and the book is it's very descriptive and articulate, so that it really paints a picture well. It's not, like I imagine nonfiction stuff as kind of like dry, like but it's very, very descriptive, and it really gives you a vivid picture of what he's trying to articulate.
It does, but it's funny how reading a book and reading a story, different perspectives. I found in the first couple chapters I read that he was describing Bugliosi as quite determined and strong-willed, but this interview takes place 25 years later, and so the only thing that he identifies to the Manson case is that Bugliosi still continues to live in that time frame. Mm-hmm. He's still living in the case itself. That's all. That's what his life is now.
Yeah.
Obsessive. I'm Mr. I broke this case. I did that, and it's 30 years later. Mm. And so he's still living in the past and focusing that on how successful he was at that. And I know the author is trying to be specific about Charles Manson, but I found that it was I found it difficult to imagine sitting here 30 years after and then I got to thinking, you guys, about like Kyle's aunt was killed by a drunk driver back in 1987, and the case was in many, many ways akin to what this book is about. It's about how the system can change the outcome based on your knowledge of the system.
Explain that, if you would, Paul.
Why? How is that happening?
No. Well, just explain that, what you just stated there.
All right. So,
how a system.
He's leading in this book into the idea in chaos that there's a lot of information that didn't come out. There was a lot of factors involved in the murders. There were people who had information. There were people who had knowledge of disagreements between that Manson may have been. Like Manson spent some time at the house before he sent the people there, and that never came out in the trial.
Right.
Right.
Quite the opposite. I believe he mentions, I don't know exactly who, but somebody claims that they only met Manson 3 times. But he also the same person raved about him as if he was really close friends with him months before,
That's right.
claiming that he only met him 3 times, which is, contradictory.
Yeah.
But as a person who read Helter Skelter and is reading this, like, have you already noticed any like interesting contradictions or?
Well, yeah, one well, not a contradiction, but I did when I first read Helter Skelter, I don't recall having such a deep desire to try to figure out the psychology of Charles Manson. I know he was psycho, but yet his ability to like one of the documentaries they posted after I read Helter Skelter and years after was that Charles Manson had an ability to lure young women into thinking of him as their father, simply in the simplest terms, but the psychological connection that gave him the ability to overpower their ability to make their own decisions between right and wrong. I mean, how can you tell a young girl, you've never done this before, but I'm gonna manipulate you into a position where I'm gonna ask you to commit a murder. And do it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like, obviously I was not planning on making any of these connections because I had no way of knowing what was going to happen in the most recent past. But one thing that the book points out, according to the book, the Helter Skelter book says that the soul, and the prosecution says that the motivations behind Manson's choices were that he got dropped for the record deal and that he wanted to scare the producer for revenge. But in this book, the Chaos book, it says that it's potentially completely absurd that was the motivation, because like the guy who was supposed to be getting scared was never notified that he should be scared. You know, like normally if you're trying to scare someone, it's like you call them up and you say, hey, you're next. There was none of that.
Right.
But also it's like because I like to try to let my imagination connect dots because I enjoy the search. I started plugging names from the book Chaos and the Manson situation into the Epstein files. And I found some interesting stuff out.
It's all one big circle of life.
I wouldn't say it's like a smoking gun connection, but it is interesting that the guy who, the Tate, the husband of Tate,
Sharon
Tate, yeah. He got convicted of sex with a 13-year-old.
Yes.
Like decades ago. And
yes.
He's brought up quite often, and not as like communicating with, but as an example in a lot of the Epstein files where they're like, you know, like the difference between Epstein and this guy. And it's interesting.
Are we I might be getting confused here. Are we talking about the French producer, director?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was his name?
Roman.
Yes, Polanski.
Polanski, Roman Polanski.
Polanski.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's
he
it.
was married to Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that, of course. And yeah, that's right. And he had to leave the United States because the heat was on him and so on and so forth. And he never did come back to the United States to avoid arrest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember hearing his name many times in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah. So the one of the things that are mentioned in this book that is that the prime motive behind Manson's ulterior motive for this was to start a race war.
That's right.
Like they tried to, but you're Kyle mentioning the fact that there was revenge, and that's some of the things that did not. They didn't elaborate too much in the original trial. There was information about people that they did not include, and the author talks about that, about the book. I mean, the music deal. That Manson had connections with Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, and he had been doing some recording and music work with them, but he had a very bad upbringing, and he had a very hard time fitting in with people. Charlie Manson did, yet he found somehow a way, whether through his own teaching while in prison or what, because he spent half of his life in jail, and whether while there he learned how to manipulate people, and he did a good job of becoming a cult leader. He was a cult leader. To me, that's my opinion. That
so far
he was one of the original evil cult leaders, because he motivated people to go out and commit murders, and to this day they're still not sure how many murders he may have been involved in.
Joe Rogan makes the joke often that Hitler needed a hug, and now thinking about that joke. And it's like Manson got probably a lot of hugs, so maybe that wouldn't have solved it.
Well, you might say he needed hugs prior to his learning how to manipulate people. Right.
Well, I did there because they talked about the drug scene in the '60s. Back in the '60s, a lot of psychedelics and a lot of hallucinogens and people. So, and then just think about this. In the book, they talk about the drugs and how everybody was getting high as a kite during that period of time. We later find out through the Freedom of Information Act that our own government was practicing systematic tests with psychedelics on people without people knowing it. I find I find that interesting myself, is that there's so much a lot of information. It's just amazing.
It's a fact that Freeway Ricky Ross was working for the CIA. He didn't know it at the time, but they were his cocaine provider. Do you know off the top of your head when that was? Was that before or after Manson? Pops, do you know?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know. All I know is the way I like the book, and I'm reading it because, but I don't know how much of it is speculation.
Well, he's been a reporter. Like he's never been a fiction writer, I don't think. And it was originally supposed to be a 5,000 word piece, which turned into a 20-year addiction.
Yeah, I know he talked about that.
Yeah,
he talks about that, but in his book, he has
Go
ahead.
No, I just fine. I do want to hear what you got to share, Paul. But what Kyle just said kind of ties in with this author, 20-year addiction, and the lawyer, Lugosi.
Berliozzi.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The
lawyer.
Attorney.
Yeah. He had 30 years later, he's still consumed with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and I'm sorry for going off here, but it was just so many things that, what's that saying? Or I can't think of it. Anyway, it was just a ripe time where in my opinion, with some of this, it was just a ripe time. You were at a time where it's the 60s. It was the height, when was that? 68, 69, something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
69.
Yeah, and the drugs, and the drug scene was high, and the anti-Vietnam War thing was high, rebellion, demonstrations, all that sort of stuff. And then you have this guy manipulating young girls and young girls who were running away and hitchhiking across America was a big thing. And then all this happens, right? Yeah, I'm kind of stretching things, but it happens right there in L.A., the prime scene place for Hollywood. And you got the L.A. Times and all these other newspapers where you can focus on this story, and they, like anything, people want a story, and the writers have a story to write about, and it's about murder, and it's about drugs, and it's about young girls, and it's about a manipulator, and it's about Hollywood actors, actresses, and God, it's just what a
ripe.
Oh, ripe. And so I can. In one sense, I can, and then you have this lawyer, this top lawyer, and he takes it on, and he wins. However you want to look at that, but one could look at it easily that he wins, and I could say, I could see how he would still be proud, and you could say consumed 30 years later, because he did it. He made sure. Again, anyway, that nobody got free.
Yeah.
That they were found guilty and that they went to prison and so on and so forth.
And I mean, to use a metaphor, you don't say I went to the playoffs 72 times. You say I won the Super Bowl. It's like if you win the Super Bowl, you don't talk about the playoffs anymore.
Right, that's it. Yeah, party's over. We won it, or I won it, or I was on that team. Paul, I'm sorry. What were you going to share?
I was just thinking about what you're saying, Dan. It's so important to what we're talking here. It is 2026. We're having a conversation, and people are writing books about a mass murderer from 1969 who one of the women in his life was Squeaky Fromme.
Right.
Squeaky Fromme attempted to kill Ronald Reagan or Gerald Ford, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Memory serves,
over the last 30 years, some of the Manson girls were still committing crimes. Were not necessarily behaving the way we would hope, even if they went to prison, reformed, it came out. The power of this man's influence on this particular group of people. It's a made for TV and it's a made for psychology special. Why? Isn't it our fault that we become so attentive to this topic that it becomes newsworthy all the time, 40 years later?
Right.
Actually, 50 years later.
Yeah, 56 years later. Right.
I can't help but think
but I find it, a lot of people go up for parole. A lot of people have done mass murders, have murdered one, more, 2, 3, 4 people. They go up for parole after they've been, they attempt to get parole, and they, they get rejected over and over again. But no one has ever garnered enough attention to surpass Charles Manson's attention that he receives every single time he went. Every year, this guy made the news because we're not letting it go.
Right, and I did leave something out there, and that I think adds to why we don't let it go. One, he didn't use a gun, or they didn't use a gun. They used knives.
Well, they used a gun too, but yeah.
But that's what we remember is the knife and the blood everywhere and the writing on the wall with the blood and the fact that she was pregnant. That just hits us deep psychologically.
Absolutely.
Vice a single bullet going into somebody. That's what you remember. See, Kyle, you mentioned the gun. I don't even remember that.
Prior to reading this book, I would have said, I don't know, he convinced people to murder people. That was all I knew.
Yeah.
So,
No, that blood, writing on the wall with the blood,
Yeah.
and her being pregnant, that hit deep.
I believe
That
it.
hit deep. And the fact that, you mentioned Hollywood actress, Hollywood actors, and all that. So these are people that we always expect to be above and beyond any of this that happens to normal people, right?
Right.
Getting murdered like this, and yet they got murdered, and it was not by other elite people. It was by the outcasts. And so, which is all tied in with the 60s, as far as rebellion against the establishment kind of thing. So it's just, there's just so much there, and then you see on TV, I was a young kid at the time, or saw the replays of it, just a few years later or whatever, but, these young women, and it's, then at the same time, you see these young women, and you're thinking, God, your life is gone. That's it. Party's over. You're going to prison. And yet they didn't care.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, Paul.
Their message was so powerful. You're in terms of like, he was a catalyst, but when he put the X on his forehead,
Oh,
and
right.
then all of the people who were his followers did the same thing. So that's why I say he was a cult. He became a cult leader.
Right. Right. Did he put that X on his forehead before or after the trial?
During.
After, right at the time he was incarcerated.
Oh, okay.
Right at the very beginning of his incarceration.
Right. Okay.
And then they showed up.
One thing I do remember, and maybe it might just be my memory, I don't think it is, and it might not be accurate. It might be a TV thing, but he spoke during his trial, at least this is my memory again. He spoke during his trial. And at the end of one time when he was returning, it must have been when he was returning from the witness stand, coming back to sit next to the lawyer, he turns to as he's walking down, he turns to the audience and he does the Christ crucified pose with his arms out, his feet together at the bottom, hanging, I'm being crucified kind of thing. Yeah. Which points exactly what you're talking about. He knew how to manipulate and he knew how to send the message. And
like I said, they were trying to put fear into him about being found guilty. He didn't care. He spent so much time in jail that for him it was like going home.
Oh, yeah. You get 3 hots in a cot.
Have you ever heard of Darren Brown?
Dan Brown, the author?
Darren.
Oh, Darren.
Yeah.
He's a mentalist.
Okay.
And he's got, if you have a VPN and you can get Netflix to cooperate, you can watch a few of his shows on Netflix. But I saw a show a couple times because I showed it to as many people as I could while I had access. It's called The Push. And it's a set up documentary where he basically, under the guise of offering somebody a really, really good job, invites them to an event to meet, the head honchos of the company with their donors, etc. And as he has 400 or so actors interact with this this person who doesn't know what's going on, he's explaining the psychology behind why he's having this happen the way it is. Between, first he puts him on edge by telling him to dress in business casual to a black tie event. So it's like he's already kind of off. And then he manipulates him by a little bit with mislabeling food. But, and then it slowly progresses to the point where at the end they go, like, hey, if you've got one choice, either push this guy off the building, accidents happen, or like you might go to jail, you might not, I don't know, it's kind of weird. And he doesn't do it. I'm going to spoil the ending. At the end, he doesn't do it. And you're like, oh, there's, humanity is saved. And then they go, but these other 5 people did. And it's like, if you watch that show, I know I spoil the ending, but it's not about the ending. After I saw that, my view of myself changed, because I was like, wait, hold on. I could see how that could happen to me. Like, I could be manipulated like that.
Right.
With that said, it's like Manson that's basically a fake version of what Manson did. And it's very interesting because if you think about it, like in the I think chapter 2, when they get into the trial a little bit, they explain that in order to convict them of murder, the prosecutor had to convince the jury that Manson, in order to get Manson, not the people, they had to convince the jury that Manson had brainwashed these people so much that they didn't have a choice. Like, he forced their hand by convincing them, and that's why he's guilty. And then he got that verdict, and then when they went to the sentencing, he had to switch it and go, yeah, but they're also free will, therefore you need to be
they still
harsh
can
to
make
them.
choices.
And through that process, they brought scientists in that basically said, yeah, you can absolutely do this. Like, it is absolutely possible to, using LSD and other substances, basically remove somebody's programming and insert new programming. And if you think about the prolific nature of how much we interact with social media and how easy it is to set up fake accounts and stuff, and it's like all of a sudden you start thinking about what's going on in the current world, and you're like, ooh, man, like, is this more pertinent now than we might have originally thought?
And how much am I being manipulated?
Oh, we're all
even though I think, no, I'm not. Come on, me. I mean, others are, but not me. So, come on.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so on page 22 and 23, it says Roman Polanski, whose films were errantly, even proudly occultist, the public found someone onto whom it could project its fatalism. There's a popular press account that states that Polanski was at a party and he said, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who will be the next to go? And he later received a phone call about the brutal murder of his wife and friends. And so I looked in the credits, and it says on number 23, breaking, eeny, meeny, miny, mo is an Associated Press story that was titled 2 More Killings Spur Coast Manhunt. So see, I told you I'm not, some of this is speculation.
Right.
The following statement is, it wasn't over. The night at the Spawn Ranch, the same group convened with 3 additions. There was the 18-year-old Clem Grogan, a musician. There was Leslie Van Houten, and then there was Charles Manson, their leader. After several hours of driving around through Los Angeles, Manson finally settled on a home in Los Feliz at 3301 Waverly Drive, next door to a house he once stayed in. That's the LaBianca murders. They were the other 2 people he had murdered. So, see, all these people, he had a motive. He had a plan.
What was it?
He
In your
was
opinion, right?
Kyle said it earlier. The guy was seeking revenge.
Well,
He
that
was
was
seeking
the
revenge,
narrative.
and he used these people
Because of the record,
because of the
not getting the record deal.
He was rejected by the music industry, but he was being rejected by the actors and people, those people we were talking about. All of you were talking about, Dan. He was being, and maybe the LaBiancas. He stayed in the house next door, so he knew them personally.
Which
But
I want to come
did he
back
let
to.
anybody there know? Did he let anybody know when he sent them in to kill him? No.
What do you mean by that, Paul? Did he let anybody know?
Well, Manson was a very shrewd mastermind behind the murders, and it was Bigliocchi's job to prove that he wasn't he. It was his plan. It was he was the mastermind. And in Helter Skelter, they brought a lot of that out. That's what Bigliocchi's job was to do, because technically Manson never held the knife. He never held the gun.
Right. He was smart about that.
Yeah, and he had an IQ of 109. Is that a high IQ or a low?
It's
low.
Well,
okay.
It's not as low as it could be.
No, it's not in the 60s or 70s. But it's not a 150 or 60. Yeah. I guess you'd say average or low average. I don't know. I don't get into that side. But Paul, and I know you've read Helter Skelter. And you've read about 60, 70 pages of this book, and you've mentioned just now, and then touched on it before, that Manson, and I knew a little bit about this, Manson had stayed in the house next to the Biancas, correct?
Right. Which
to me, and I don't know without looking at the houses and so on, but just strikes me odd. Now, if somebody says he stayed there one night, I go, okay, a one-off. But if somebody says, oh, yeah, he stayed there 6 months or 3 months or a year and a half, whatever, and I'm thinking, what is Charles Manson, who was brought up in the way he was brought up, what's he doing staying in this upscale, I'm assuming, upscale home in the L.A. area? Why is he there? Go ahead.
He did have he had a large number of attractive, promiscuous women, which was one of his tools to get access to people like the drummer of the Beach Boys. Like he was close friends with the drummer of the Beach Boys. He was close friends, So
he was kind of like a mini Epstein.
I had made the thought, and I had that thought because it's like in the book, in the Chaos book, it says that one of the, I want to say it was one of, not the detectives, but maybe it was like a DA. One of the officers said to the DA that they had found a tape of the wife getting sexually assaulted by two of the friends of the husband, and that he instructed them to just go put it back because there's already enough shit going on here. And if you think about it, right, if Manson had access to a bunch of girls and the husband was known to be a cheater and a fan of ladies, young ladies too, obviously, since he got convicted of it, then you think, oh, well, Hollywood, sex cults, and then you go, okay, Weinstein, well, what about Epstein? And it's like, ooh, could this all be connected? Like, could it be? It sure is fun to think about.
Well, I don't want to go down the conspiracy stuff, but because it's kind of tough sometimes, whether it's shoot.
Well, Dan, anyway. I was thinking about what you said earlier about all of the social the rebellion that was taking place back then. During the trial of Leslie Van Houten, said your whole system is a game. You blind, stupid people, your children will turn against you. And that had to be a motivating factor behind many of the people that Manson was able to manipulate. You know, it's one of the, we could talk about, and I think cults have kind of matured over the years here in America. We had the David Koresh
Right.
in Texas.
Right.
There was this group of people in California who all died up on top of the mountain, right?
That's the Kool-Aid guy, right?
You know, and then they had the Jones in Guyana there. All these people, all these different, I believe Charles Manson was a cult leader, and they never once mentioned that as, and I don't remember ever hearing the word a cult in Helter Skelter. I don't remember ever hearing the word cult.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't recall. And during the trial, I'm just guessing that the lawyer that he probably would want to stay away from that, because he was trying to convict Manson and the girls, the young woman. So if he started leaning heavily, and you already talked about this and explained it, but if you lean too heavily into the cult thing, then it's difficult to get the women convicted. And they're the ones that actually held the knives, the gun, whatever, all the stuff, all the weapons. And anyways, yeah, good stuff.
So, I'm an avid reader, and I'm always trying to encourage people to read. I don't want to go off course. This book, I would recommend to anyone who just likes to read. Kyle, you read. I read about 15 books a year. Right now, I'm reading 3 different books. I'm reading. But my favorite is fiction, fantasy, and Kyle and I were talking earlier. What's your favorite? I don't mean a diverse. Kyle, you're the host here. What's going on? Tell me where you want
facilitating. I'm perfect. Like I said to Dan earlier, I'm happy with just listening.
This is
you
good.
guys are
This is good stuff.
People.
I was going to ask you. Excuse me. And you mentioned earlier about fiction fantasy. Was this something, Paul, from a young age, 12 years old, 15 or whatever?
That I like to read?
No, not about reading itself, which I do want to talk about separately, but about fiction fantasy.
Oh, fiction fantasy. I got turned on to fiction fantasy in my early 20s.
Oh, okay.
And I've been reading ever since. I read every single book that David Eddings, Terry Brooks ever wrote. Right? And I've read all of Terry Goodkind's books, and I've read of all of Stephen Donaldson books, and I read Gene Ull's books and Eric Sanderson.
Yeah.
I'm reading the Rhythm of War right now is a book that's like 1,400 pages long.
Jeez.
And I work with little kids, and so I have the book in the van I drive, and they're all baffled by the number of pages in the book. But I've always been an avid reader. Even when I was younger, though, I read. Once I start reading, I don't want to stop until I've read the book completely. Prior to making my own choice to read more. I probably read 10 books between when I learned how to read and my early 20s. But those 10 books I read because I wanted to.
Okay. Okay.
You see, and of course, you do school reading. You do, during my school years, I was forced to read a lot because school requires a lot of reading.
Right.
But
would you consider yourself, even though you only read, and I don't mean to put it down, but that you read 10 books from when you first began, that you recall reading when you first began to read to your early 20s. But, excuse me, did you consider yourself a good reader? Or did you ever struggle with reading?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I was saying earlier with Kyle. Sometimes the way you read and what you're reading, your own perception of what you're reading, it becomes involved in what you're reading.
Oh,
and so like I consider myself a good reader because, like I don't just read the words. I put my imagination to work when I read. So like it may take me longer to read a book than I know some people that can read a book in one day.
Right.
But is their imagination at work the entire day, or are they just reading words that they're seeing?
Right.
I like to read, and when I read to it like a form of meditation. I can remove myself from all other things going on between my ears and just focus on the reading.
Right.
And that's that's why I'm only up to page 68 in this book.
You sound
because
you sound a little bit like me in that regard. I'm not a fast reader or a quick reader, but I just like to go ahead.
This is a shared conversation. Tell me your perspective.
No, I like to. I can just picture what you're saying in regards to imagination, putting my imagination to work to try to have myself in that same setting, and when I'm really into it, it is a form of meditation. But as a result of all that, for me at least, sounds similar to you, not the same, but similar. That it causes. As a result, I'm not a fast reader. I just kind of plod along.
and for some reason, I like to like in Stephen Donaldson's book, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever. Right, I read that book back in 1980. I read all 6 of the first 6 books. Right, and in one, he talks about how they're walking through a forest called Morin Moss, right? And this is a fiction, but then like 15 years later, I'm watching a documentary on television, and they talk about this forest in Australia that is the exact thing I imagined in my head. Because they were walking through trees that had no leaves. All the trees were covered in moss, and the moss strands were hanging down. And now I'm seeing this picture as these people are walking, on horses, through this forest in Australia as they talk about it in a nature documentary. And I'm going, that's where Stephen Donaldson got that. He must have really learned about this place and incorporated it into his book.
He might have. Was he Australian?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's all right.
That reminds me.
I don't know.
First time ever.
But it points to what you were saying earlier, that of your imagination getting that you're just full on into the book, and you're actually picturing clearly and distinctly what the author's trying to get across. It sounds.
I work with young kids. Last year I did for a whole year for first, second, third, fourth graders. I did reading, and I would help them with their reading skills. one-on-one individually with all four, and I would try to encourage them to do that. A sentence about some simple. Oh, the kids are at the park, and Johnny fell and hurt his knee. I said, try to imagine that picture. Try to put yourself into Johnny's shoes. What color is the grass? Is he in a sandbox? And I would do that with the kids. When you're reading, try to develop your imagination to be where that sentence is. Don't just read the word. Create the sentence in your head.
Right. Right.
And I had kids. Before you know it, I had 9 kids. They all going to do my reading program.
Tell me more about how are you involved with? Is this a volunteer thing or?
No. I retired from being an addictions counselor at the when the pandemic started. So I went out and got a part-time job as a driver and a intermediate. I pick up kids from school and I bring them to an after-school program. Then I work with the kids for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I drive them home.
Oh, okay.
And in that hour and a half, I did a reading program, and,
Right.
And now I do homework. This year I've been assigned to do homework with the kids because parents are too busy or don't have time. That's an opinion.
Understood. No, I get it. I was a public school teacher for 13 years, so I was just curious about that.
I one time heard, I don't know if it was Japanese or Korean or something like that, but it's one of the Asian countries. They swap kids for homework. So child A goes to do homework with parents B, and child B goes to do it with parents A, because when you're with your parents, you understand what you can and can't get away with. But when you're with your friends' parents, it's like, okay, yes, ma'am. Yes. So, yeah, maybe it's got something to do with that. Like, hey, they don't know what they can get away with you. Therefore, it's more productive.
Well,
Yeah, but it's a riot. Young kids are a riot, Kyle. Yeah, I work with this young lady. I'm helping her with her homework.
Depends on the kid.
And it's very simple homework. Like, you got 10, 20, 30, and the 30 is missing. So you go, okay, what belongs between 20 and 30, 20 and 40? 30. Okay, write that down. Very simple, right? Then she goes, I got a headache. I go, yeah, but you only got 3 left.
Right.
Yeah, but that's how my mother gets out of stuff.
Right. You just said that, Paul. I got a headache, and I thought, doggone, I'd hear that as a teacher too from students, certain ones. I'm not feeling well. I got a headache. Yeah, you just want to bail out of this work that we're doing.
Yeah. But they learn that. They learn.
Yeah.
They learn.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Hey, Paul, I want to touch on something before I forget here. Actually, there was 2 or 3 things. I'm trying to remember them. But something I usually ask folks, and I think you already touched on it a little tiny bit. When you read, what format do you like to use? A physical book, an e-book, audiobook? Talk to me about that.
Well, I like the book itself, hardcovers or paperback.
Yeah.
What I found is, I had a ebook,
Yeah.
and I won't name the brand. I had an ebook, and I bought a series of books on that ebook, and I had them,
Yeah.
and I read like 10 books, maybe over a 2-year period. Then the tablet died.
Okay.
It died. It got old. It died, and I lost my copies. I couldn't go back and read them again. I lost them completely. Now I can't even remember the name of the authors.
Oh, okay.
Because,
I see.
you see, so that became an issue for me. And I said, well, I'm not doing that ever again. Even though I did try ebooks and, subscribe to subscribe to a product, but and I found out later that the series of books, the first 4 I read, after a year they take them out of my out.
Right.
So, that plus the tablet dying, later, I lost all records of any of the authors and everything.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I would, the reason I could tell you all the people I read before is because I keep copies. I have copies. I have copies of my books right here on the shelf.
Yeah. Interesting how that is. How about audiobooks?
I did that too.
Okay.
The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. I read that book, that set, twice as hardcovers. And then I was down at Senior Center here, and I saw they had an audio book of the Sword of Shannara series.
Yeah.
So I started listening. I liked that. I really enjoyed that. But the problem again with that is if you can't, unless you have a unit that allows you to press go at exactly where you left off, you lose. You have to go back to the beginning and start over with the audiobooks.
That's why you're supposed to use your phone. Like I just use Audible on my phone for listening to this chaos, and I work for the government with my hands full, walking in circles 20 miles a day. So I just hit play, and then like the reason I accidentally went past chapter 2 is because my hands were full and I kept forgetting that I had to stop it. But like you could play pool while listening to an audiobook. But you can't exactly, the retention isn't there. So that's why I listen to it more than once.
I forgot. You're right, Kyle. My reference to not being able to pick up where I left off was because the audiobooks I listened to were on CDs.
Yeah, I get it. Right. Right.
With the CDs, once you turn the CD off, take it out because you want to play some music instead. You put it back in, you can't find your way to the right chapter.
Right. Very difficult to do. Yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit, Paul, about. You've already touched on it, and here's my one other question about when you were young, and that is when you were growing up and so on, was there anyone, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, teachers, older siblings, if you had any, who you remember as being, you remember a certain event or being influential in regards to your reading?
None. Sorry. We moved a lot. I went to 11 different schools before I got out of high school. And no. My mom, she had 8 children living at home most of the time. So she didn't have a lot of time to specifically point us in the direction of a special interest.
Got it.
And so, no, I read, I don't even, I read a few books mostly because of book reports. Like I said, I read some books because of book reports. And that was, I was not my teen years reading was 90% of it was strictly due to school required assignments.
Right.
And, I don't recall reading too many books away from that pattern.
Yeah.
before I grew up, into my 20s.
Right. You said, just make sure I got the number right. You said 7 different schools?
No.
So I went to 11.
11 different schools. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
11 different schools.
Yeah.
And I really would encourage parents to try to keep their kids in the same system for as long as possible, so they can pay more attention to their academics and less attention to social integration, which is required every time you move.
Right. Right.
And it distracts people from getting that education they need.
Right.
I mean, Kyle was fortunate. He went to what?
One school for each grade.
Two,
No, like
one.
Like I never switched schools between
three schools, right?
Yeah.
3 schools before you got out of high school.
Yep. I went to
3 schools.
one
in the same
elementary school,
district.
one middle school, one high school.
Yeah.
But that's the same school district. I went to like
Right. Right.
8 different school districts.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
But
Okay.
you also when I graduated from school, my first career was in advertising, and I ended up buying a newspaper and was a publisher for a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
And I worked in advertising for 8 years, so I have similar to you. I wrote some stories. My college professor was really kind to me. Here's a story for you, Dan. I think you'll enjoy. I started as a radio disc jockey in college, and I walked into the radio station, and I said, I can earn some extra credits being a part of the station. What can I do? And they put me on the air the same day. So. So
somebody didn't want to work and they had an open slot and get in here.
so a couple weeks later, I go to my mass media class, right? And Herb Michaels was my instructor. And he puts a cassette tape player down and he plays it. And he says, we're going to critique this guy. We're going to critique this tape. And it's a radio disc jockey. And everybody in the room agreed it was the worst disc jockey they ever heard. And even I agreed. And then as I'm ready to leave class, he says, Paul, come here. He says, did you ever hear yourself on the radio before? I said, no. He hands me the tape and said, this is you.
You didn't even recognize your voice?
I had never heard myself in a recorded format.
Oh.
So I didn't even know it was me.
And so there you are in class critiquing it and yada yada.
Well, he didn't embarrass me. He didn't tell anybody.
Oh, very nice of him. Very nice of him.
Yeah, he was a good professor, and I really valued his opinion. And I'll tell you more. So what he had me do, we used to have an Associated Press teletype machine. He said, I want you to start reading, taking the news off the teletype and reading it word for word to improve your diction.
Oh, interesting.
And so I started doing the news, reading exactly what was said, leaving out the does and the ahs and the mms and the gaps. And it helped me improve my vocal and my verbal presentation and my diction. It helped me 100%.
Right.
And when I was getting ready to graduate, that same professor called me in his office, and he said, Paul, you have a great personality, but you're a terrible writer. He says, if you get into this business, get into advertising, because between your knowledge and your personality, you'll do well. Well, I went to work for a local newspaper, and I worked in the newspaper business for the next 9 years. And I ended up buying that newspaper because I did what he suggested. And I became the sales manager. Then I became the publisher. Then I sold that newspaper, made a bunch of money, and went to work for another company and put that newspaper out of business.
Wow. Well done.
Basically, but, so I really do value people advice, the advice I've received over the years, suggestions, and today I look back at these things as experiences and lessons that I had to learn, like with him, me telling myself, you suck on the radio. I had to learn that, right?
Yeah, right. No, I know what you mean. I've had similar instances in my life. Usually, for me, I don't know. It had to be not for the most part. It had to be until I was like 19 and on that I'd have these specific instances similar to what you're talking about, where it would be one of these, and I really listened to the person, usually because I really respected the person, and it wasn't coming from my parents with all those social issues. And it just, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, I still remember it distinctly. And it was such a huge help in what they said to me. Just tremendous help. And why I listened, I don't know. And why I followed through on what they said, do this, I don't know. But it was just, I think because I knew, again, it comes back to I respected them because I knew it was coming, from the heart, actually from the brain. But anyway, from the heart, I could tell they were trying to help me. And anyway.
That's true.
Yeah.
I know. I feel this. I can feel your emotions just in what you're saying.
I can still remember. Yeah.
That gut feeling you had. That gut feeling that I'm going to listen to this person.
I'm gonna interject
Even
real
if
quick.
you didn't know you were doing that at the time,
Right.
You understood it.
Right. And even though at the time, I still remember with one of them, not a couple of instances where I'd start offering up whiny little excuses as to why I couldn't or shouldn't, yada yada, but they were just persistent. Do this. I'd whine something. Do this, and anyway, I did do what they said, and it was tremendous help for me. Tremendous help. I'll give an example since I'm blabbering here, but I was in the Navy. And I was in the Navy for 21 years. And this one, as an instructor, those are my early years in the Navy, first couple of years, and I was going through a bunch of electronic training. And I was doing all right. Yeah, grade-wise, I didn't do grades, but grade-wise, upper C's, low B's and stuff. But struggling at times, and getting through. And so you go to night study. Most of the students did go to night study, so it wasn't anything unusual. And I went at night study. And there was this one instructor there. Wish I could remember his name, but anyway, I did for a long time. But anyway, and, he was going around the different desks, helping the guys. And he said, and so I was explaining to him, I'm really struggling on this and yada yada, and he says, and I don't know why. I'm trying to remember now. He did teach us, but not all the time. He wasn't the main instructor. Anyway, but he could see what the problem was. Anyway, I don't know how, but he says, you know what your problem is? You need to raise your hand. And I offered some whiny excuse, about, well, if I raise my hand, then, it's going to slow down the instructor, or if I, or whatever, if I raise my hand, it's kind of embarrassing, and, showing that not following along, or if I raise my hand, he's going to get irritated, yada, yada. He says, don't. Raise your hand. Every time you have a question in your mind, raise your hand. Simply ask the instructor, would you explain that in a different way? Could you give a different example? Could you go over that just one more time? And I started doing, I had to force, I was quite introverted. I had to force myself to raise my hand. And then it was like one of the things that I realized almost immediately was, oh, so many of the rest of the students in here don't get it either. By my raising a hand, because then they'd start asking questions. And I realized, oh, you guys don't get it either. It's not just me. So then the embarrassment thing went away because I realized that. And I just forced myself to raise my hand. And it was just this tremendous thing. Boom, instantly. It was almost instant. Or I was getting A's. You had to do this practical test where with this electronic equipment, sonar equipment, where you walk into the classroom and they'd put a problem in the equipment and you had 30 minutes to fix it. So it's a little bit of pressure, you know? And so, but I remember walking in after that, and it's just like, I don't care what problem you put in there. I'll find it. It's easy. No problem. And I get A's on the test. It's just easy. And then I noticed over time, gradually, I wouldn't raise my hand as much, and my grades would get lower. And I'd have to go back to forcing my hand up again.
Hey, Dan,
It was tremendous.
watch my dad's face real quick. He was given more data.
Oh, he loves to talk about that word data. But
Anyway, that's one of my stories.
What he's saying is the data indicates that the more you raise your hand, the better results.
That was it for me.
Yeah.
We got into a long conversation about free will, and I kept saying, like, nobody has free will. It's just a matter of how much data adds up before an action occurs. And it's like, for you, it was, you know, this isn't working, and then someone went, here's some data. Raise your hand.
Right.
And all of a sudden, your process changed.
Right.
And if they didn't tell you to raise your hand, you would have never made that change.
Right.
So did you choose to change? No.
Right.
You just got more data. And we got in a long conversation
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
I wanted to see how he'd react when I brought it back.
Right. But again, it came back to an instructor that I really respected. He was higher rank. He was in the system. You know what I mean? It wasn't like some student sitting next to me, some Navy guy, same rank as me at that low grade I was at the time, saying, "Oh, you ought to raise your hand." And
Quality data.
Right. Quality data. There you go. Anyway, I'll stop yapping now. To let you know, Paul, I got a lot of stuff written down here in regards to the Chaos book and in regards to you as a reader. And
There's more paper over there.
Good
if you need
stuff.
it.
Okay, no, I got paper there. Yeah.
I looked up earlier today how the difference between literacy and reading, and because I knew this, and so just having this conversation and finding out I was going to be talking to you today made me want to know how I can be more helpful to the kids. You know, and recognizing the differences between a kindergartner or first grader who are just learning how to identify the words and not necessarily comprehend the meaning behind them. And so I feel like I was on the right track when I tried to encourage them to use their mind to think about the stuff they're just not just reading words. And so I always thought literacy was the same as reading, but there's a fundamental difference between the two. And I wanted to let you know that my wife is an avid supporter of our local library. She's been getting books out of the library for 6-7 years, and the library systems around here, they borrow and share. So all she has to do is decide she wants to read an author, and she can get a book that'll come from a library 15 miles away, will come to our local library. And the libraries are extremely valuable to people's reading. I mean, I like to encourage more readers. When I do my radio show, I encourage people to read the newspaper, stop reading the internet, stop depending on something that they can't put in their hand. I mean, they can put their phone in their hand, but there's something tangible about a book that an e-book can't give you. There's something tangible about a newspaper that you end up with a physical relationship with a book. So and I always try to tell the kids it's important that you read books, and I love to do it. I've always loved to do it. I continue to do it, and sometimes my wife and I will go. We have a camper up in the mountains. We'll spend 2 days reading books and not talk. We won't even talk to each other, except they sit down and eat. After that, there's no talking because we're both sitting there reading books. But it's very enjoyable. Kyle, hey, I want to tell you something about Kyle,
Oh boy.
Dan.
Yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Kyle's the kind of guy who like, when he he started shooting billiards with me. And so he decided to make his own pool sticks. Then we started doing archery together. So he started building his own archery bows. He's the type of person who, this is who he is. His challenge in life is
Well, I
not
listen to podcasts.
to
Well,
say,
you can make one.
is when he wants to learn something, he learns the from the skeleton up. He learns from the grassroots up. He doesn't just say, I want to learn archery. I want to learn how to build a bow. And I took him, he said to me one time, I want to go backpacking like the Native Americans used to live out in the woods. So he went backpacking in the winter with a pair of moccasin sandals. And I drove him up in the mountains, right? And there's snow on the ground. And he said, I'm going to stay up here for a couple days. And I went to work the next morning, like at 9 o'clock. And at 9:30 in the morning, I get a phone call from Kyle. Come and get me. My feet are numb.
That's not true. Okay, firstly, I've never worn moccasins in my life. Secondly, I did not account for the cold on my battery, and it was either call you then or call you never. But I will tell a story about that trip, which was I didn't go on a trail or anything. I found some property that like the guy lived 100 miles away. I was like, I'm just gonna go camping on his property, and so I was hiking, and it was a warm day, so I was in a t-shirt, even though I was knee deep in snow. I didn't understand how much more difficult it is to walk through unpacked snow, so I didn't get very far. And the first little opening I saw, I was like, I'll set my tarp, because I didn't bring a tent. I was just going to sleep under a tarp. I was like, I'll set it up there. I get there, and there's a set of coyote tracks going right through the middle of the thing. And I'm like, well, and it goes out on the lake. I'm not going to mess with ice, not alone especially. So I followed it in the other direction, and we're talking like 75 feet from this spot I was planning on setting up.
Right.
The tracks come out of a hole, and they don't go back in, and I can't see in there because it's dark and deep, and it's like, I think I should probably not be in the way here. So I keep going. I find a frozen stream, but one nice thing about ice is it's flat. So I was like, I'll just set up here. So I set up the tarp, just like a lean-to.
Yeah.
And, I had a fire, and that was the time I realized you should bring something other than coffee for warm drinks, because coffee has caffeine, so you can't drink it to warm up before bed. But I had fallen asleep. And you know how when you get startled awake, your brain has a moment to be like, should I wake up? So I heard something hit the tarp, and my brain came to just enough to get the shit scared out of me because something grabbed my foot. What had happened was a chunk of ice fell off the tree, hit the tarp, slid down, but my feet had slid out the back of the tarp. So the ice came down the tarp like a slide and landed right on my foot. Oh my God, scared the shit out of me. But yeah, that was a memorable time. I still got the pictures on Facebook. But yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah. Well, you're going to talk about a couple adventures, Dan. Him and I went on a hike down a trail one time, and it was really, really windy. He was about 4 years old, maybe 5 years old. And all of a sudden we hear crack. We could hear this big, big tree snap and start falling. Talk about running down a pathway faster than lightning.
Let me
man.
tell you about that weekend. Let's start a lot earlier.
Yeah.
So I have a brother who's 4 years older than me and a cousin who's 5 years older than me. And my cousin brought a friend. And my cousin, he was the cool cousin. He was in kung fu or karate, and he always had the really cool like adult toys because he was 5 years older than me.
Right.
So he had a knife. And because they were old enough, my brother, my cousin, and his friend were throwing it into a tree.
As you do.
Right. And it was like, it's not your turn yet. It's not your turn yet. It's not your turn yet. And then they're like, okay, you can throw it once after I throw it. He throws it, the tip breaks off. Kyle doesn't get to throw the knife. He has a slingshot. Now, this was a cool slingshot. It had 2 rubber bands. I remember this slingshot, but it's not your turn yet. It's not your turn yet. It's not your turn yet. They're shooting rocks, across the field. Finally, they go, okay, you can shoot one. I pull back and it snaps. Kyle can't use the slingshot. And this is how it went the whole weekend. Then it's like one thing that Kyle was allowed to do, as long as Mom wasn't there, was play with fire. And as long as Uncle Jerry wasn't there, because Uncle Jerry was on the stop playing with the fire. But I was sitting, it was like an Adirondack 3-sided shelter. Mm-hmm. I was sitting inside playing with a candle, and my cousin was standing outside playing with a candle directly across from me. And he said, let's switch. He's tired of standing. So I climbed out, and I leaned across to grab my candle. And in the process, I leaned over his candle, lit my shirt on fire. Stop, drop, and roll training works. It works. So after all of this, Dad goes, why don't you and I, he's like, obviously Kyle's having it rough. Let's have some one-on-one time. We'll go for a hike. As soon as we walk just out of sight of the thing, crash, this tree comes down. We were back at the site like that. And it was like, okay, Kyle, just stay right there. Just this weekend's not your weekend. We get it. But yeah, memorable.
Yeah. You have any, Dan, you got any brothers, sisters?
I have one older sister, 2.5 years older, and that's it. Yeah. Yeah. No, still close. She lives down in Portland area, was an hour and a half away, and we were both raised in Beaverton, Oregon, and by 2 wonderful parents, my mom and dad. They've passed away, but we had a wonderful
So,
upbringing.
Are you a resident of Cathlamet?
I am technically not. I do not live within the town limits of Cathlamet. I am just north of it. I'm about a minute and a half from driving time to get into
I find the area to be beautiful. You guys live in an awesome area of Washington. When Gene and I visited the area, we stayed at the Cathlamet?
There's a lamb in it. Cathlamet.
Cathlamet the hotel in downtown.
Yes.
And a lot of my friends here in the East Coast, I show them, took a picture of the hotel room key, and I show them, and they go, they don't use those anymore. I go, yes, they do. They do this at Cathlamet or whatever. But we had a wonderful historical trip when we went there. It was awesome.
Nice.
Just Kyle took us up in the mountains. We tried to see Mount St. Helens, but the avalanche stopped us from getting to the viewing area.
Oh, that's right.
But I took a lot of pictures of the trees that grow on top of trees,
right,
around there and things like that. And I show a lot of my friends, and every one of them are just going, "Wow, that place is really awesome. That's a lot different than the East Coast." Have you ever been to the East Coast?
I have, and I know exactly. I lived for a year and a half, close to 2 years anyway, in Ohio, the center of Ohio, due to girlfriend reasons, and worked there and so on and so forth as an auto mechanic. And then in my Navy days, I also did. I went to various training in Illinois and in Connecticut, in
Connecticut.
Groton, Connecticut, or as affectionately known in the United States Navy as Rotten Groton. And
Rotten.
Yeah. And went to submarine school there. And so I do know, and I know it's a whole, and then being in the Navy and of course, you're around guys from all over the United States, and so I know, having lived out there and so on, I know it's a whole different thinking, atmosphere, mindset, whatever. Because I could joke with folks about like with Oregon, I joke with them because usually they knew about. There's many things that they kind of this is back in the day before the internet, in the 70s and 80s and whatnot. But I could joke and say, oh, yeah, in Oregon, yeah, it rains so much. And usually some of them would know that, oh, yeah, Oregon, it rains a lot, whatever. I'd say, oh, yeah, in Oregon, it rains so much. The windshield wipers, they automatically come on when you start the car. And there'd always be a pause like, oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, well, my brother's got a...
Or I'd mentioned something about the Indians, the Native Americans, something about, we're still having issues with them or something, oh, yeah, you could play with a lot of different stuff.
My brother has a Cadillac. The wipers automatically come on when the windshield gets wet.
The new technology, yeah, right.
Yeah. But,
it makes me think of the pause I get when...
My wife and I spent a couple months in Spokane. Back in 77.
Yeah.
We were in Spokane for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So been up to Washington before, but...
when were you out here? When did you come out here to visit?
1977.
No, with Kyle.
Oh, was a year ago.
Oh, okay.
When did 2 years ago, Kyle?
2 Octobers ago.
Okay.
2 Octobers ago.
Not too long ago. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I get a pause when I tell people like there's a railroad tunnel in Massachusetts that connects Zor to Florida, and people go, "Wait, what?" And it's like, yeah, Zor, Massachusetts to Florida, Massachusetts. It's 5.3 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about when I was a kid, but my dad showed me the Hoosic Tunnel when I was real young, and all the way up until I came out here, it was like at least once a year I'd go visit. I don't remember at all ever seeing a train go through there until my last visit. And then it was like, oh, a fucking train. Like, finally.
It really does happen.
Yeah. But.
Yeah, if you want to, there's a book out there. It's called The Mysteries of New England. Yeah, if you want to look that up, and people want to find out about some of the history of New England over the years, you'd be, if people live on the West Coast all their life, they may not know much about the East Coast.
Right.
Vice versa.
Right.
But it's a very interesting book, and it has some interesting stories about all 6 New England states.
Okay.
When I say I've been an avid reader, I like reading old books also. There was a book published in 1928 called The Shipwrecks of New England, and that was all prior to 1928. And what interesting histories came out of that, Kyle, Dan, you'd be surprised. Some of the like the shipwrecks were so widespread up and down the coast. That's how the Coast Guard got started. Was people along the East Coast decided that to have lantern carriers walk along the shoreline at night to help people navigate the shoreline. So they would stop crashing into the rocks. And
right.
They have an island in the middle of Cape Cod Harbor, Boston Harbor.
Yeah.
It's called Lover's Rock, right?
Okay.
And what happened actually was in the middle of the winter, a shipwreck occurred, and a lot of the survivors of the shipwreck got on the island, and they froze to death. But what they were newlyweds. They were newlywed men and women who had traveled from England to America to start life over. And they ended up dying on this rock. So they nicknamed the rock Lover's Rock.
Oh,
I mean,
grief.
if reincarnation is a thing, they did start over.
Yeah. And this is why I love to read.
Yeah.
Because all these things, they bring life to me.
Right.
But I don't want to talk about me anymore.
Well, I want to ask.
Kyle.
I do want to ask one other question here, Paul, and that is in regards to the Chaos book. Well, you had read Helter Skelter back when it first came out, and so who chose to read this Chaos book? Was it you or Kyle, or how did that happen?
I don't know. He just sent it to me and said, "Start reading this."
So,
But he knew. He
do you want to know the real?
You explain
All
yourself.
right, here's how it goes. I listen to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan has a lot of guests on. And when I heard, what is it, Robert Kennedy Jr. there, RFK Jr. the Make America Healthy Again guy.
Yep.
When I heard him talk about all of the bullshit that Anthony Fauci tried to pull during COVID, and how he had written this book about the AIDS pandemic and how corrupt Fauci is, knowing that my parents are in a liberal hub, I said, I'm going to send my dad this book. Maybe he'll read it, and it'll make him question some of the things that he sees on the news there.
The Chaos book?
No, that was the real Anthony Fauci.
Got it.
And Dad said, no, I'm not going to read that. But then when I heard about this book, I was like, well, that could also maybe make him question some shit. So I'll send him that, and maybe he'll read that because, it's a little bit more interesting.
It talks about acid and LSD and the CIA and Charlie Manson. And there's topics of interest to me there because I recently, I'm 73, Dan, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree at the age of 64. And I had to do some studies and do some reading and refresh my memory to why the drug culture got so real and all the things that happened over the last 40 years and 50 years. And I got a more perspective and a wider view of these things. So I think Kyle felt that I might be willing to talk about these things because I have such a widespread 40-year experience with this.
Right.
Yeah. And so he sent this book to me, said, we're going to talk about it. But he wanted me to read the whole book and alert. I said, no, it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen.
Whoa. Hang on. Are you going to read the whole book?
That's funny you should ask. I have never been able to do. I'm going to read issue 1, and then I'm going to read issue 4. I'm going to start reading 1, and I'm going to stop reading 1 and go to issue 2. I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not one of my behaviors.
Right.
I buy a book, I read 1, and I read it all. And then if the second book comes out, I buy the second book, and I read just that. Even if there's 4 books in a series, I will read them in order according to the sequence and completely. That's the way I read all my books.
I think what he meant is that he thought I wanted him to read the whole book all at once. Is that what you're saying? Because originally I was like, well, let's talk about the first chapter, and he was like, the first chapter is like 70 pages, and I went, well, I got an audio book. I don't know how long it is.
Yeah.
So
I think the first chapter is 44.
Whatever. It was a lot.
Yeah. And I said, let's do it one chapter at a time.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I can. He wanted me to read more.
I got it.
And I can't do that. It's just not in my nature.
Right.
And I think people read according to their own transcript. Yeah, it is 44 pages. And, one thing about learning oneself is it's so important to recognize what your what your patterns are, what your rituals are.
Right.
And for me, I tend to don't ask me to do things that are outside of my normal patterns that make me comfortable. I mean, it's the older we get, the more. Well, the older we get, the smarter we get. I'll tell you, before I'm bringing a bunch of kids home, or no, I was bringing them to the program. I had 7 kids in a van, and they go, they're all playing with their tablets because it's Friday, and on Friday is technology day. They can bring their tablets to the program.
Yeah.
They can bring their cell phones to the program.
Got it.
So they all looking forward to that. They can sit down there and push buttons and race each other and interact, because some of the kids have 5 different systems, but they're all playing the same game.
Yeah.
It's like when Kyle does his gaming. But so they go, "What game do you play, Mr. Rogers?" And I turn around, I look at him, I go, "I played a game of Wisdom. Have you ever played Wisdom? It's a really good game, but you can't buy Wisdom in a store. You can't. You might get it out of a book if you read a lot."
Should have tried to explain Rygar to
You're
him.
crazy. They're looking at me like I'm. Oh man, here he goes again.
So they know you well.
Yes, they do. They know me well. And they all respect me, and I get hugs from the kids, and I love them. They love me.
Yeah, nice.
Do you get to interact with kids as chairman of this committee, or do you have to deal with just adults?
Mostly adults, but once in a while, a few kids when I'm hanging out in the library, because I'm in the library a lot. But so when I'm hanging out there, there's different moms or dads, that come in on a regular basis and with their kids, So I've come to know a few of them, and I'm able to joke around with them or mess around with them or whatever. But fairly comfortable with them. They're comfortable with me. That's the key thing.
So when it comes to the book Chaos, though, I would recommend it to somebody who likes to read between the lines and find out what was missing. If they've ever read a good mystery book of sorts about famous cases and stuff like that, I feel like it's filling me with additional information that I may not have had, despite the fact that I was very interested in that, just like many of us, who read Helter Skelter, who watched the trial, who listened to the documentaries over the years and everything, it's given me it's intriguing enough that I'm going to continue to read it. And yes, I will read it completely.
Okay.
Which was your question earlier. I'll probably read this book completely.
Okay.
Along with the other 2 books I'm imparting on. I have Kyle bought me a Terry Brooks, 3 of them. And I'm in the first book of that one, The Child of Light. Right?
He's easy to shop for. You just send him a book, and as long as it's not the real Anthony Fauci, he'll read it.
Well, yeah. I don't like attack books.
Right. Understood. Understood. But mostly, as you mentioned earlier, you're reading some kind of fantasy books.
Yes,
that's what you love to read. Yeah,
is my love. My reading. Yeah, I love to read fiction, fantasy, and I have pictures on my phone of books that if I didn't take a picture of the book, I would, because this is a 3rd book in a series, and I haven't read. Let me say this straight. The first 2 books I read were like 4 years ago, but I still have a picture of that 3rd book, and I am going to find it I have a Barnes and Noble gift card, and I am going to be able to go and get that book when the time comes for me to read it. That's it. Like I said, I read everything. I don't jump around. Once I want to pick up on an author, I go from the last book I read to the next one.
I hate to ask a why question. let me ask it without saying a why. What do you think causes you to enjoy fantasy fiction books so much?
Because I think I've alluded to that earlier. It's because when it comes to fantasy fiction, the magic really don't exist. There is no sword out there that has a special ability to cut through metal and light up and shoot bolts of lightning up at somebody and things like that. So like those kind of things, it's just fun. It's fun.
Well, hang on. Usually I don't. This interview is a little different, and plus I got plenty of information already here, Paul, just letting you know. But I am still writing down some of the information you're sharing. But you say, the magic doesn't really exist, like the sword cutting through the metal or the stone or whatever, right? And so for me, now I'm speaking not so much book, but movies, and usually the movies are based on fantasy books. I just really struggle with sitting through a fantasy movie because for me, depending on the movie, depending on how well it's done, blah, blah, blah. But generally speaking, I just don't like it because I know anything is possible. And if anything's possible, it's like, well, whoop-de-doo. Hop on the back of the dragon and fly away. Or pick up your sword and it will magically grow, 30 feet long so you can chop off the head of the dragon.
Why did you have to walk into Mordor?
Yeah, to me, it's just like, well, whoop-de-doo. Yeah. I just get... really, you walked from this place to the castle for 30 miles and you didn't have to stop and go pee or eat some food along the way? Oh, good grief. Or get cold. Anyway, that's just me. I'm just going.
Maybe,
go ahead.
Maybe it has something to do with The War of the Worlds by Orson Welles. Because, like, in a way, Orson Welles literally, without realizing the fake Martian invasion was going to have people jumping out windows.
I heard that was just a tall tale.
No, whether it was the fact or fiction, the people responded that way, it is a fact.
Why? Hang on, Paul. Hang on. This is good. This is good stuff. After I just blabbed about my viewpoint, why did you bring up War of the Worlds? Because
when he originally broadcast that, there were people who listened to the radio broadcast after he put the disclaimer. So you're talking about the radio program. Yes, the radio program back in the late 30s.
Right.
Now, when that disclaimer, when people heard the disclaimer, those people knew that it was fake. But there were people who tuned into the show, thought that it was real.
Right.
And those people reacted as if it were real.
Right.
And so
go ahead.
The power of communication, the power of fantasy is relative in much the same way we could connect it to Charlie Manson's ability to, through fantasy, through acid trips, and through manipulation, convince people to commit murder who had never even harmed a single soul before. Yet, in much the same way as Orson Welles' show, War of the Worlds, was able to convince people that we really had Martians landing on the planet.
Right. Right.
And to me, that's so powerful. That's so powerful that I think that is how fantasy.
Okay. And for 8 years, whatever, you were in advertising, marketing. No, seriously. I mean, there's a tie-in to me. There's a tie-in.
Yeah, there's a, well, you know.
No, I'm not trying to make it personal or bad in a way. I'm just saying the same thing. And I'll say, you know, I'm on the board of the library. I'm the chair of the library, but, you know, whoop-de-doo. But the main thing that, and I've only been on it for a year and a couple months, but the main thing I knew right from the get-go is we need to advertise. We need to market. Nobody knows what we are doing. And it's that same thing. And then, so then when we start doing that, and it's the same thing, I run a weekly ad in our little dinky, or I shouldn't say that, in the Wahkiakum Eagle, a county newspaper, and it goes out throughout to other counties, so they're doing a great job. But we run a weekly ad, and my first thing was, how do I get people to look at this ad every single week? I need to change this ad every single week. And I need to either make it slightly humorous or something where...
Sensational.
Could be sensational, but that's usually not good with the library. Because people go, oh, you shouldn't do that. You know, you're the library. So it either needs to be something slightly humorous, or it needs to be something where the moms especially go, oh. Those are the two emotions that are very strong for us as humans. We like to laugh. We like to find humor. And we like that little sentimental, you know, oh, that's sweet. That's nice. Especially library. And so that's what I'm always, but it's the same sort of thing. We, in all seriousness, that, you know, it's those human emotions. Same thing with Charles Manson. He knew about the human emotion. Same thing with Orson Welles with War of the Worlds. He knew of human emotions. And he knew on that radio program, I can get people. I'll put the little warning at the beginning, but after that, I know people will tune in who will miss that little warning at the beginning, and I'll be safe. The FCC can't come after me, but I'll have a wonderful program that people will.
And his step to fame was that show.
Yeah, exactly. Huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, all these mass shootings that have taken place over the years.
Yeah,
they're just a step to fame.
For some of them, you're absolutely right. Sadly,
unfortunately,
you're absolutely. Which is a good thing that I think personally that newspapers, whatever, online sites, whatever, have gotten away from mentioning the person's name after they first identify him. They really stay away from mentioning that person's name again. It's like, let's just talk about the victims and about, you know, whatever. But
well, I know a lot of the libraries in this area, because what I do with my radio show is I focus some attention on the children activities at the libraries. Every month they publish their children programs, and to encourage young people and parents to pay attention to the purpose of a library. They have you know all kinds of activities for young kids. One of the things I saw recently was our local library has when it snows and there's no school, they open up the library to game day.
Nice.
They say anytime you can bring board games. They let all the kids come in, and they set up board games, and the kids can play board games in the conference room all day to keep busy and keep off the streets and stuff like that.
Right.
But they have a lot of different activities, reading programs for young kids, show and tell things that so they keep themselves in the forefront of the community asset category. We're a community asset. Here's how we show you.
Wonderful. That's how it needs to happen, is that people regard it as a community asset. And a kid might come through the door, kids might come through the door, never look at a book or check out a book or whatever, but they'll be sitting around together with a couple of their friends playing some board game or doing a jigsaw puzzle or whatever. or doing some kind of craft activity, whatever. That's huge. And they know it's a safe place. It's a free place. There's no adults telling them what to do. And that's good stuff.
Yeah. My question, see, you can tell, I hope, Kyle, I hope you don't mind me just chatting with Dan like we are.
I'm enjoying myself.
Okay. So has the subject of banning books become a topic of conversation among your committee and the community out there? It's a topic of conversation here where some people on the library boards want certain books banned, and there's heated discussions over that. And that was something I never heard of for years until more recently.
The answer is no. So let's not even talk about it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? No, I haven't said all that. Obviously, I'm aware of, and I read about, banned books and all that sort of stuff. And we do each year, or at least, I've only been on there a year and a few months. But Vicky, our librarian, will, there's a certain designated month or week or whatever for banned books. And so, and we celebrate that by taking, she does a great job. She takes the books that are listed as banned. I don't know all the different ones because to me, they're not banned. It's like they're just a book to read. Anyway, takes those and then puts them in brown paper, wraps them in brown paper. And anyway, and then they still put on the shelves in the normal location, or sometimes she'll have them where they're all together. I forget, there's one or two other things that she does in that regard, but it's more of a highlight. It's more of a celebration in a way about the banned books. On our board, no, there's never once any discussion about that. And the two key things I look at is in regards to about a book, is it appropriate? I know these are all gray areas, Is the book appropriate, and is it in demand? If it's in demand of some sort, whether for research or it's a popular book, or even if it's a 20-year-old book, but, every once in a while somebody's looking for it, and is it appropriate? In other words, if there's certain books, I think we can all understand and realize without having to talk a whole bunch about it, that are not appropriate for a library to have, whether it's somebody's personal publicized, self-publicized book and, they got 6 copies of it and it's talking about, I don't know what, probably not appropriate. Or if it's something really getting into certain depravities of, that humans can come up with and so on, probably not appropriate. So again, but so that's my cut on it. We never have any issues with that. Now that I've just jinxed myself.
It sounds like in a spirit of cooperation, you've worked out a way to accomplish what a lot of other libraries are struggling to do, and that is to make the library more important than anything else. And in terms of your goals, they're all on the same page. That's cool. That's really hard to come by. So I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Even up at the college, I hear discussions at the college library about what to do, how to handle, when to, and what not to do when it comes to all this, all the current, the political division, the social division, the cultural divisions that are making it so difficult for us to live a daily life. It sounds like you guys have figured out a way to do that.
Yeah, it's called small town.
Yeah, small town.
I think what Kyle just mentioned is a big part of it, that it is a small town. And so for the most part, everybody just wants to, as I say, let's make the library even better.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yep.
You made me think of a question I'd like to ask you both. when you said that she wraps them in the brown paper bag, that reminded me of one time I bought a book at a tag sale. It was red, and it didn't have a title on the outside, and I intentionally didn't look at anything until I got to page 1. Have you guys ever read a book that you knew nothing about at all?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, maybe when I was a kid, younger and
Not
stuff.
memorably.
Yeah. No, right, exactly. You pick up a book, usually you read on the back page or on the inside, or you've heard about it before.
Right.
Especially as you're older. But even as a 20-year-old or something, no. I'm sure even as a 20-year-old, there might have been, a time or two, or 16 or 23 years old and stuff. There might have been some times, but I don't I knew I could describe the book probably at least in a couple sentences before reading it.
Okay.
I mean, not just nothing.
Right. What
Never,
about you, Pops? Did you ever do that? One thing that I would implore you to give it a try is to find a book where you don't even know the title and just start reading sentence 1. And the reason for that is, as I was reading this red book, it was a red hardcover book. It was about this thick. I had no idea. And you're reading it, and it's like, here's a character, and they're doing this, and they're driving that car, and it's like, is this a spy novel? Is this sci-fi? Is this a biography? I have no idea. And as you read, it's like you're discovering the genre, and it really opened me up to the idea of like, this is truly anything could happen, because it's, if you know it's a Stephen King novel, it's going to be Stephen King-esque. But if you have no idea who wrote it or what it's called, or if it's fiction or nonfiction, it's like, Putin could show up or aliens. Like, you don't know.
That's a wide range.
Well, that goes along the line of that's Kyle's style. He that's Kyle's style. He just gonna, I'll pick up this book and know nothing about it, and I'm gonna learn about it by picking it up. Just by picking it up, he's going to learn something about that book. Just like he learned how to make his own bows, make his own pool sticks, because once he picks up an interest in something, he's going to learn about it.
Yeah.
And, this book, the Chaos book here, one of the things, as we're talking over and over again, some of the information in here, it's not new. It talks about the things they didn't talk about is about the drugs and the sex parties and the orgies and all the other stuff. Like, maybe that's what makes it a little bit interesting, is because like, we must all be aware that this stuff goes on in Hollywood.
Yeah, on an island.
Yeah. On an island. No, Kyle, it goes further than that. It's always been a part of society. Our deepest secrets are our deepest secrets. Both our individual. I say it this way: an individual can have secrets, a community can have secrets, a country can have secrets. The world has secrets. There's no doubt about it.
Right. That's both profound and dumbfounding at the same time.
Yeah.
And even nature or the universe has secrets, one could say. We just haven't discovered them yet because we either can't comprehend, can't ask the right questions, or we don't. The key thing is, in my opinion, we don't have the right tools yet. We haven't developed the right tools yet. We used to just like with, you just think of Columbus. Think of Christopher Columbus crossing the ocean, 1492, coming across. And one of the sailors up there in the top of the mast
says, "Land ho!" And Christopher Columbus raises his spyglass up to take a look at the continent or the islands. Except one part of that story is false, because Christopher Columbus could not and did not have a spyglass at that time. It wasn't discovered yet until approximately 1609, when Galileo started developing one with the help of a Dutch man also. And so it wasn't until like 120 years later that sailors of whoever on Earth, that nobody on Earth, think about that, nobody on Earth could amplify, is that the right word? Their eyesight. Think about that. Nobody on Earth until 1609. Anyway, why am I talking about all this? I don't know. But just the fact that the universe and
new tools.
Yeah, new tools.
Yeah,
new tools.
I like to, when it comes to that story, I like to think about the first half of it, where it's like some dude was like, you know, we're all out of pepper, and Columbus went, "That's that way, right?" And he went, "No, it's that way." And Columbus went, "Hold my beer, I'll be right back." Like, don't tell me where to go.
But I do need money. Hey, Queen and King.
Oh, jeez.
I'm a big fan of questioning traditions and upholding some. You know, like some traditions, you question them and you go, okay, that makes sense, and you uphold them. Some of them you go, well, you don't really need to question these because they're just benign. But some of them, if you know, I hate it when you question a tradition and people go, no, you can't question that. It's like, oh, now I need to know why. Like, if you can't explain to me why this tradition exists, it probably doesn't need to exist. But, you know, that only gets me in trouble at work every day. Yeah. I remember this isn't as intense as it needs to be, but I was scanning a barcode at work, and I read the fine print underneath the barcode, and it said I'm supposed to hit a specific key after I scan that barcode, and I had been doing it wrong for over a year, and no one noticed. So instead, I just stopped scanning it altogether, and it took over a year before anyone noticed. And it's like, why are we doing this? Like, this is a tradition that obviously does not need to happen. Like, I'm not scanning that barcode ever again. But
yeah, it's interesting on those things.
So, you know, some of the things that have happened to me over the years. Back when I was in high school, this is about self-worth. I like to think that we have an opportunity as older people, Kyle, yourself, Dan, and I, is to open the door of self-worth to people around us. When I in my senior year at high school, my mom moved 15 miles away from the school I had been in for 3 years. And I went to that school. I was in that school 1 week, and I got beat up and had my head thrown into a toilet bowl. And I said, well, I ain't staying in this school anymore. And I went back to the high school I was in, and I transferred back there. And they said, we can't give you transportation because you don't live in our district. And then the other district said, well, you're not going to school in our district, so we can't give you transportation. So I got a job working part-time out of Montgomery Wards, halfway between both my home and that school. And I finished my senior year of high school there. And for an 18-year-old, I didn't look back on that was a personal accomplishment of mine that I could look up to. I just saw it as survival.
Right.
I wanted to survive and graduate from the school of my choice, but I didn't see it as a conscious, mature adult decision I made because I was still 18, just a kid.
Right. You're just surviving.
Right. And today, when I hear young people talk about, I always try to encourage them to look at those positive things that are going on and consider everything that you see positive in your life a success. It's one of the things that are missing in kids' lives today is the idea that learning how to tie their shoe is a success.
You might be surprised how many people still don't know how to tie their shoe right. Keyword right.
Yeah. Thank you, Velcro.
Well,
Thank
no, you got to
Velcro,
tie it
right?
like a square knot, like not an old granny knot. Yeah, it's got to be like a square knot.
But my point is,
right. Go ahead.
A library is a great place to do that. Because you're always thinking positive about how to instill a positive thinking in the kids, how to So you're in a great place, Dan. Really,
No,
you're in a great place.
I'm not putting it down. I am. I don't believe in jinxes at all. I don't believe in things like that. But I don't want to jinx it because we do, as Kyle knows, we live in a wonderful town here in Cathlamet and wonderful county of Wahkiakum County. And then being able, I'm retired now. And so, and financially secure and all that good stuff. But being able to and have time and currently, knock on wood, healthy. So it is wonderful to work at a public institution such as the library that just needs help, or any library needs help is what I'm meaning there, and appreciates people that can volunteer time. And I really appreciate Vicki Franklin, the librarian there. I'm not trying to advertise here. I'm just yapping.
I was just about to ask you to advertise.
But being able, she's always willing to work together to improve the library. She never tells me, no, it's not how we do it. Or, no, it's never no. I mean, rarely is it. Sometimes I think of dumb ideas, completely insane ideas. And now she just those kinds of things. She'll just look at me and go, Dan, and I go, oh well, okay. But so she's completely open to just making the library even better and reaching out to the community. And we go out to a multitude of events throughout the town and the county. And that's been one of the keys is just reaching out to people where they're at instead of always saying, you have to come to the library to get a library card, and to learn about the library. Instead, we go out to different events where the people are having various events and set up our table and our laptop and our laminating machine and issue people library cards right there and then, within 5-10 minutes and answer questions, and be a personal contact for folks so they can, just start feeling comfortable and realize this is their public library that they can be at and be associated with and even use the library without ever stepping in it. And I know, for people that do enjoy using ebooks and so on, by having our library card, they can get free ebooks and they can get free audiobooks. Or they can we have 5 different, what we call cultural passes to different museums and other things in the area that they can get. They just come in, get their pass and can go to something that would normally cost $15 or $30 or whatever, $50 for the whole family. They can get it and go there for free. So we just really continue to try to improve the library. We also
again, but it all comes back to having a board and having a librarian that is supportive of making the library even better and doing changes and just trying things. We have now 6, 7 different local businesses where if you show your library card, you get 15% off. And so it's just things like that we're always searching for, reaching out for. And I did tell Kyle that I would promise, and I've already leaked it a little bit, so sorry, Kyle. But this summer, we have a local swim pool here in Cathlamet, and it's open roughly mid-June, and then July, and then August. So in roughly 2.5 months. A little bit of September, but that's more for the school. But anyway, and so this year, for the first time ever, if you have a Cathlamet library card, you can get into the swim, and you're under 18, you can get into the swim pool for free.
Nice.
So that's been something, again, it's about empowering the library card, but also at the same time, it's something. Good grief, kids should learn how to swim. And here you got a single mom with 2, 3, 4 kids, and she can't afford a library card or well, the library cards are free now. But anyway, whatever reason, she's busy, she doesn't know about the library, and she doesn't, they don't really go to the library. But now she does want her little Johnny and her little Susan not to drown. So, and she does want them to get swim lessons. Boom. Now they're free.
Nice.
Now it's free.
Nice.
And so, why should we charge? That was the women's club started the swim pool. It started getting it going back, I don't know exactly when. I think around the 50s and 60s, maybe 70s. I'm not sure. And specifically because they got tired of losing 1 or 2 kids every year in the county because they didn't know how to swim. They'd go in the river and they'd drown. And or they go down the ocean and drown or whatever. But so they said, we need a swim pool. So they started it, and that was the main focus. And so, again, now we're charging these kids in order to, get comfortable with swimming. And so this is one of the reasons for offering this opportunity is that if you have a library card for 2026, if you show up at the pool and you're under the age of 18, you can go swimming for free. And awesome. So nice. That's
cool.
Yeah.
And that's incorporating a couple things involved in that. For you have a relationship with someone in the community and you said earlier where people are at. And it certainly is true that, getting swimming lessons and access to a pool is something almost everybody wants to have, to be a part of. I was thinking about this earlier. When I was in high school, that same school that I had to graduate from, I wanted to graduate from.
Yes.
There are people in our lives that deserve a thank you and may never get it. Just like there's things we're doing that people may benefit from that they'll never be able to tell us they benefited from them. My principal was 70-something years old, and her name was Mrs. Hanrahan. And every day she would meet me outside my junior English class because I failed junior English. And she would walk me back to my senior English class and say, "You're going to graduate. I'm going to make sure of it.
Get the hell out of my school."
Well, Kyle, maybe she did want me the hell out of her school. I don't know. But she never made me feel that way.
Right.
And I didn't even know how I felt about what she was doing, except that I was being coddled and I was being babysat, and I really didn't want her walking me back to my English class every day. But she did it.
Yeah.
And she as a principal of a high school with 700 and something students, she took time out every day until I started walking back to that class myself.
Right. Right.
That is the kind of person I want to be today. See?
Right.
Even though I didn't know for years, that's the kind of person I wanted to be.
Right.
Suddenly one day in my life.
Right.
Because Miss Hanahan, for years, I thought she was a pain in my ass.
Right.
But it turns out that she wasn't a pain in my ass. She was a guiding light.
Right.
And all she did, and that's what you're doing, Dan. You're setting an example when you set up those tables and you go in the committee with the committee and you go to these events and maybe 150 people will walk right by you and never even look over their shoulder. But they know you're there.
Right. Exactly.
They know you're there.
Exactly.
And that's really what counts. Just like I knew she was there.
Right.
Even when I didn't know, I knew she was there.
Right. You wouldn't. Right. You wouldn't acknowledge it. You wouldn't smile at her. You wouldn't any of that stuff because that wasn't cool to do. But she was there. Right.
She was there.
Yeah. Yeah. And she established in you, it sounds like, that, after a while, she didn't have to walk with you.
And you asked me an important question earlier. You said, is there someone who encouraged or made me think about, like, that got me into reading?
Yeah.
But you brought me to a place where I could think about maybe she didn't get me to be a better reader, but she encouraged me to do something.
Right.
Pass that junior English.
Right.
And that was enough.
Right.
That was enough. In that instance, that was enough.
Right.
Yeah. Kyle,
Yeah.
it's
I was just going to
9 o'clock
say,
here.
Pops, we've been going for 2.5 hours.
I know.
Amazing, right? Why don't you do your advertising? Tell us one more time about your radio show or whatever you'd like to do.
Well, I went to the site after talking to you, and I couldn't. I have to have a conversation with my radio advisor, because the last time they put one of my shows on the cloud was July 25th. That's 6 months ago. So I see some of the other DJ. See, Dan, I have a dilemma. I'm a volunteer. I'm a member of the Alumni Council, and I'm on the College Foundation.
Okay.
I'm a member of the College Foundation. And so I have a radio show, and a lot of what I do is to promote the Alumni Association. But I also fulfill FCC regulations regarding public service announcements that the radio station is required.
Right.
Right? So we have 2 ways to keep records. And one of them was to have my show on the cloud every week. Well, now the new advisor hasn't done it in 7 months. So I'm a little bit I'm in a dilemma, because the radio station is a club. It's a student club. So the students must come first. But I also have an obligation as an alumni member of the Alumni Association, fulfilling the FCC regs for the radio station. So they're supposed to put my show on the air to do that up in the cloud. So anytime the FCC wants to, are we doing public service work? So now I have to have a conversation that I don't want to have.
Right.
I would prefer not to have that conversation.
Right.
But I'm being forced to do it, because I looked today and found out that it's been 7 months since they last put something up in the cloud for the FCC to see. So,
I have similar experiences. I could tell you another story, but I won't. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
No, I want to. So we have dilemmas, we have conundrums, we have we have to deal with every day, right?
So instead of advertising your radio show, you're going to advertise your new to you podcast.
Yeah.
Just do it yourself, Dad. I'll host it on my website.
Yeah, I might. I've been talking to Kyle about that, but right now I'm learning to be more conversational. I know I have a thing about dead air.
I leave it in.
Yeah, dead
like-
air. I
like
told
to let
Kyle
it
last
sit.
time. He says, "Don't worry about dead air. I like it to be natural and flow.
Yeah.
So if it's dead air, it's dead air."
Yeah. And like, I'm going to be honest, I'll be listening to either my podcast for making sure it doesn't have any errors in it, or other podcasts. And sometimes there's just enough dead air where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, it's still going. And it's like, yeah, it's fine to make people do that. It gives you that naturalness of the fact that somebody's thinking, or, well, that's awkward, but like, I like that naturalness. So, I cut out a lot of times. All I'll cut is the beginning up to where it's like, okay, now we're going, and then the trail off. But
Right.
speaking of the trail off, remember they're looking at you from over here, Dan.
It's a dryer. Hey, Dan was going to tell a story. I want to hear it.
Oh, all right.
Oh, well, I really wasn't, but so I got to be careful here.
All right.
But it's
This is
similar to what you're talking about there, and that is that
If you
I
prefer not to.
was interviewed for a podcast.
Was it this one?
No. It was wonderful. I received wonderful compliments immediately upon stopping the recording. I was informed. I was informed that when the podcast would be available, and that I would be sent the link to the podcast. Neither has happened, and
Now I'm feeling
Yeah.
really awkward. Was it this one? Okay, good.
yeah. So it's just I'm just going to stop right there.
Okay.
And I reached out to.
It can't be this one because I don't remember being reached out to.
I reached out to individuals, via email, and nicely, I would say, as far as, hey, where can I find it? And, silence, no reply, crickets, whatever you want to say. Which leads me to another thing. So, yeah, that's turned into a funny thing now between my wife and I, which is good.
Was it her podcast?
Come on, no, come on. I'm an older guy, duh, and I got big shoulders. It's to me stuff like that. It's like, just tell me straight up. What's the big deal? But it also gets, in regards to emails or texts, but emails. And I think it's part of I was talking to my wife. I've talked to her several times about this. But I think it's part of I think it's, one, the time frame I was raised in, at least for me, the household I was raised in. And then also my mom influence also. And that is, when you're back in the day, you remember this, Paul, when you had landlines, although we didn't call them landlines, but anyway, a regular phone sitting on the counter or attached to the wall, right? And if it started ringing, you went to answer it. You, at least what my experience, you didn't wait for it to ring 6, 7, 8 times. You got up and went to answer it because somebody was there and they wanted to talk to you or to somebody. And at least for me, I felt it was always a feeling of guilt if you didn't get to it in time, or what did they want? What's the information? I missed out, or it was never, let it ring. If they're really important, they'll call back. Yeah. It was just like you felt you weren't being polite or something like that.
And so now with emails and stuff, for me, it's like, okay, I emailed you 2 days ago. Can't you just at least say, yeah, thinking about it, got it, I'll get back to you? Or just, I don't know what, thanks, hey, appreciate your thoughts here. Or I don't know what. But I just don't get that. I just don't get that. I don't,
So, Dan, are you saying that modern communication is all fucked up and rude, inconsiderate, nasty? It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're not saying that, but I mean, I get from you that it can be very uncomfortable when people don't respond to your calls or don't answer your texts or act like you weren't there.
Right. And I'm not even talking about younger people, and I understand it's because it is a different upbringing. So I understand that. I'm not the old guy standing on my lawn and saying, "Get off my lawn." But
Mr.
you ever
Wilson.
open a door for somebody and as they walk through, say to them, "You're welcome"?
No, I don't do that. But I just don't. To me, it's just, it is, to me, my understanding is, it's just, I hate to use the word, but basic human communication, right? Somebody, I could think of 1,000 examples, but I'll just leave it there. I just don't get the email thing as far as not replying. Waiting day. I'm not talking within 6 hours. I'm not talking necessarily that within 24 hours, but to go days and days or weeks. I'm just talking basic communication, basic information. I'm not talking any emotional stuff that I'm, why did you do this, or anything like that. I don't do stuff like that on emails. But it's just all professional and stuff. It's just like, hey, busy right now. Thanks. I will get back to you tomorrow. Well, what's hard with that? I don't get it.
I've learned that it's a lot easier to hold someone accountable if you pose the question of, if I don't hear from you by, when should I reach back out to you? And it kind of puts them in the chair to be like, you answer the question, like, when am I going to start harassing you?
Right. Yeah, I get that, Kyle. Once in a while, I'll do something similar to that. But whenever I do, I always feel like I'm telling them, if I don't say this, you're not going to get back to me because you aren't as polite as I am in getting back, or something along that line.
What about my boss?
In other words,
about my boss?
I got to hold your feet to the fire here a bit because otherwise you won't get back to me. It's like,
But you're talking about simple manners. I mean, I work with these young kids, and they don't say, "Can I open the window, please?"
Yeah.
I'm opening the window. I said, "No, you're not. I locked it." Well, why'd you lock it? Because you didn't ask me if you could open it. You told me.
Yeah.
So, it begs to be discussed. This is an important, a lot of us have become quite insensitive to how we treat other people.
Right.
And it's like when I say open a door for somebody, they just walk right through. They don't say thank you. But every once in a while, you're treated to just the opposite. Yesterday, I went to buy dog food, and it's a big, heavy bag. And at every step of the way, people said, "Hey, can I help you?"
Oh, nice.
And I got to the cash register. They cashed me out. I got to the door. I had to switch. I have some health issues, so I use a power cart to shop.
Yeah.
And a guy, I was trying to transfer the bag into a regular push cart to bring it to my vehicle. The guy says, "Hey, can I help you with that?" I got to the car. Another guy says, "Hey, you want me to put that in the car for you?" I was like, oh my goodness, all these people out there willing to help each other. This is cool. We have bad days, we have good days.
Right, I understand. Yeah. And it is, and I understand that also with email, as far as somebody receives it and they still don't have enough information, or they're emotionally upset for some reason and all that. But the emails I'm sending are almost always on a professional level, and asking for information and following up and giving them information that they were looking for. And, all they got to do is email back and say, great, got it, thanks. And I'm working on it, but when you have me on a podcast and you produce a podcast on a regular schedule and you tell me when it's going to be available and that you're going to send me a link, those things don't happen. And then I reach out to you nicely, professionally, just nonchalantly, just kind of, hey, by the way, kind of statements or questions. And then there's just silence. And before, when you wanted me to be on the podcast, you were emailing me consistently and quickly. And now there's nothing. Zippo.
Yeah.
Zilch. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Will you tell me who it is
Interesting.
off the air?
No.
Unfortunately, that happens. That happens.
I know.
a lot. You as a writer probably have done that to someone. You write, you do an interview, and then after the interview, do you always send a copy of the story to them?
No.
Or do you hope that they'll pick up the local paper and read the story themselves and not call them back again?
Yes.
Because you don't have to.
Right. So I get that. No, I do. And I'll tell you straight up. No, I don't send a copy to anybody. I did the first couple times, and I'll tell anybody. In fact, I was telling somebody recently that in regards to that it was just too much. Because then I'd have to wait for them to send it back. And now I'm looking at a Tuesday noon deadline to get it submitted to the paper, and I don't, so I don't do it. And I've never heard any pushback on that. There was a younger gal that I interviewed, and I knew about her family and upbringing and yada yada and all that sort of stuff. And so I knew there's some things I had to be sensitive to, and I was. And she wanted to see the draft ahead of time, and I said, sure, no problem. And it was changed quite a bit, and I didn't change a thing. I simply submitted it to the Eagle just like it was, without one change, after she changed quite a bit, and which is fine, cool, whatever. I don't care. It's yours, and life goes on, and no big deal. Anyway.
Yeah. Now, that is, you've been in the media business being a writer. You know how the gatekeeper works. What happens if the poor gentleman podcast manager or the editor or whoever does the production work for him decided that to screw it up and he didn't want to be honest with you and tell you. They messed it up.
I could share much more, but I don't feel at liberty to. But let's just say, if I think there was a screw up,
I screwed up.
I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
I've screwed up so many times in my life on different. I'm talking. Not social or moral things. I'm just talking technical things.
Sometimes people can be brutally honest. It can be painful. I went.
But sometimes
I've been in recovery. I've been in recovery for gambling for 33 years. So one time I get invited to a local college to be interviewed. by college students but I had to remain anonymous.
Oh, okay.
So, they couldn't use my name.
Okay.
And I answered all their questions the way our program of recovery says to answer these questions. And they said they'd make a copy of the interview and they would send it to me. So I never got the copy, and I call them up, and finally the teacher said, well, we destroyed it. And I go, what do you mean you destroyed it? He goes, well, you didn't answer the questions the way the kids liked it, so they didn't like the interview itself.
Good grief.
So they trashed it because they didn't like it. Was too boring.
And to that, I just say, okay, cool. Why couldn't you tell me this months ago?
Right.
What was the big deal?
When I first got the...
But my, I did everything they wanted, but it was too boring.
When I first got the third microphone and I had more than 2 people on the podcast, the first extra person was James Sorensen, and I hadn't set it up right. So the whole time he's over here like this, and it's like, I did my best, James. I'm sorry. I still, I tried to even it out. I still released it, but oops.
Right.
But yeah. All right. I think we're going to call it here.
Okay.
FrivolousDreams.com. We got a forum, and because AI is so prevalent, go back to snail mail. Write someone a letter.
Hey.
Thanks, Dan.
What a pleasure it's been, Dan. What a pleasure. This is a conversation. This is the way I do my radio show, the same way Kyle. I'm spontaneous. We just have a conversation, and we leave it as it is, and hope everybody enjoyed themselves. And if we enjoy ourselves, somebody will enjoy listening to it. I'll leave with this. This is about a payphone. My grandson, I took him camping several years ago. He was 4 years old. And we're driving out of the campground, and there's a payphone on the wall. He goes, "What's that, Grandpa?" I said, "A payphone." He goes, "What's a payphone?" He didn't know what a payphone was. So I had to give him 75 cents to call his mom. But, life changes. Landline? What the hell? We never called it a landline, right?
Right. Never called. It's just the phone.
Oh, it was just a phone. But today, things are different.
Yeah.
Things are different.
Nice meeting you, Paul. Wonderful conversation. Thank you very much.
If you're going to write a written piece, okay, make sure Kyle gets a copy of the paper and he can mail it to me.
I was planning on it.
Okay.
I was planning on it.
Okay.
All right.
And if I do any injustice,
maybe we can do this again.
that's the way it is.
Yeah. We can all laugh at it together.
Right.
Yeah. And we can maybe next time we can talk about some real serious issues that we're not afraid to talk about. Like,
Gravity.
I got thrown off.
The show is over and no one is rich. Maybe next time I'll hit real big. I wish you good day. I'll see you next time. Oh, Fabulous Dreams!